First of all, I am glad to meet all of you who are either in Goa itself or all of you are friends of the Vedanta students in Goa, connected to Goa. I am happy speaking to all of you at this special satsang put together by especially the Kulkarni family in Margao, with full support from Gaude, Dr. Prabhu and others. We have taken for this satsang a simple topic, and that is how Gita throws light on intelligence and foolishness. Pujya Swami Chinmayananda Ji, whose birthday will be coming in 6 days, used to use quite a lot an expression, and that was unintelligent living. He would often say that a whole lot of our suffering, our conflicts, our misery are all because of unintelligent living. Other day I was studying Vidura Niti from Mahabharata. In the very first chapter of the 8 chapters of Vidura Niti, the wise minister Vidura takes up defining who is intelligent, calling him or her Pandita, and who is foolish, calling him or her Mudha. Pandita Lakshanam and Mudha Lakshanam are dealt with in quite a lot of detail by Sri Vidura. Then it occurred to me, look at it. Basically, all the scriptures and especially Bhagavad Gita talks about how to live intelligently and how to let go of our foolish ways. Therefore, I took up Bhagavad Gita in my hands once more. Probably I have lifted it like that 100,000 times. Here I looked at it from a different angle of view. I started seeing which are the shlokas which awaken us to right living and which are the shlokas which warn us against foolish ways of living. And I could not believe all the 18 chapters are filled with advice on intelligent living. Then it was a challenge for me. Oh my God, these people in Goa and their friends elsewhere are going to expect me to speak on intelligence and foolishness in the light of Bhagavad Gita. Though the topic was given by me only, I was really challenged. I felt challenged. What to select? How to make a choice? For the whole Gita is filled with pieces of advice on these 2 topics only. However, with Sri Krishna's grace and for the convenience and ease of all of you, I selected 7 shlokas. Not even full shlokas, ideas, gems of thought contained in 7 shlokas. Let me begin with the very first chosen shloka, and that is from chapter 2 in the famous Sthita Prajna Lakshanas. As you know, Sri Krishna's teachings do not begin in chapter 1. They begin in chapter 2. Chapter 1 is Arjuna's Vishada, and remaining 17 chapters are Sri Krishna's Prasada. Sri Krishna's instruction takes off in chapter 2, and it is the 67th verse where Sri Krishna presents a very appealing metaphor. How a boat with sail up is caught in unfavorable winds, and then God only should save that boat. Vayuhu navam iva ambasi is the expression. 1/4 of a shloka. And what is the message over there? If anybody among us has a certain weakness for sense pleasures, and we let the sense organs, indriyas, guide our mind. Our mind is enslaved by the promptings of the senses, then we are going to be very foolish. If we thus fall for the wishes, the whims and fancies of our senses, then we will be living a foolish life. Those who are intelligent among us know when to say yes to the senses and when to say no. Spirituality is not at all about starving the senses. Don't eat good food, don't listen to good music, don't enjoy beautiful scenes. That is not the teaching of spirituality. Spirituality says, do not be a slave to senses. Whenever the sense organs want some delicious food, just ask yourself, is it the right time? And is that food good for my health? And what is the quantity of which or of that food that I should take? If 1 or 2 such checks are exercised, Bhagavad Gita gives green signal. It waves the green flag for you and me to enjoy any sense pleasure. But giving the example of a boat being dragged in dangerous directions by unfavorable winds, Sri Krishna says, if we are foolish, our senses will be dragging our mind in dangerous directions, and tadasya harati prajnam. There is an expression. Our understanding, our sense of right and wrong, our sense of good and bad goes for a 6. Therefore, the 7 shlokas that I have selected are all organized in such a way, they will tell us 7 ways of being foolish. As you know, Stephen Covey wrote a book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I invite 1 or 2 among you to join me. Let us write a book, 7 Habits of Highly Foolish People, based on these 7 selected shlokas. Please volunteer later on. The first one is, how do we live in a foolish way? We must just listen to our tongue and eyes, our nose and ears and our skin. Always say yes without thinking. That is one foolish way. Now let's go to the second one. It is said in the context of Karma Yoga, I am again sticking to chapter 2, 49th verse. And there is a punchline. Kripanaha phalahetavaha. What it means is, phalahetavaha, those who are all the time concerned with the outcome of their work, are indeed to be pitied. Kripa ke yogya hai wo. Kripege yogyaradavravaru. Our ಮೇಲೆ ನಾವು ಕೃಪೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಅಯ್ಯೋ ರಾಮ, these people are working hard, but because they depend so much on success, they are most of the time either anxious or disappointed. Wise people do their best, think of all possible results and mobilize their energies in the best way, but having done their best, the intelligent people just let go of their anxiety for fruit. As another shloka in chapter 5 says, Yuktaha karma phalam tyaktva shantim apnoti naistikhi. Phalam tyaktva. Without worrying about will I succeed, will I fail, what will people say, etc. We have to ensure that we have done things to the best of our understanding of dharma. We have given our best. Then because of some other factors, if our work fails, so be it. That is God's will. Take that failure or some other time success, both as God's prasad. When you go to a temple, the person sitting or standing next to you may get wonderful big fruit. You may get only a tulsi leaf. You don't care about it, because if you wanted a big fruit, you would have gone and bought it in the bazaar. Here, even if it is a little tulsi leaf, you take it as God's prasad. And you look at the big fruit that the other guy got and you smile. Oh, he got a good big fruit. That's all right. For me, this tulsi ele is so dear. Narayana, Narayana. You say, you come out. Like that, Sri Krishna says, those who day after day give their best and do not waste their energy on success or failure, they are wise, but kripanaha phalahetavaha. Those who depend on phala for their happiness are to be pitied. They are foolish. Go for the third selection. That is where I, along with all of you, jump to the 17th chapter. Saptadashaha Adhyayaha. Over there are a lot of things said, but the selected verse talks about if we are foolish, our way of communication is flawed. Our way of speaking will be having some defects. We will be speaking in such a way, agitating everybody. Udvegakaram vakyam. We will be speaking in such a way that there are lies, falsehood in those words. Asatyam. We will be speaking in such a way where nobody is benefited. There is no hitam in it. And very often we will be speaking in such a way which is displeasing to others. That is the way to be foolish. So those who will join me in writing the book, please note, we will have to describe how successfully we can live a foolish life. The art of living foolishly. I tell you, a lot of fools will buy those books. Some wise people also will buy those books to avoid being foolish. After all, putting humor aside, this art of living involves knowing what we may do and knowing equally what we may not do. We must have a clear idea of both do's and don'ts. Don'ts have to be avoided, do's have to be followed. So the third one is those who talk irresponsibly or write emails or WhatsApp messages or SMSs, etc. in an irresponsible manner, where they hurt, where they tell a lie, where they are not benefiting anybody and where they are actually unpleasant. They are really very foolish. Now let's go for the fourth way of being foolish, which upon avoiding we will be intelligent. The fourth one is a very popular shloka. In fact, it's a pair of shlokas in chapter 6, where Sri Krishna says, if you want to be foolish, do this. Overeat. Ati ashnataha is the expression. Natyashnataha yogosti. Nacha anashnataha. If you overeat, that is a sure way of living foolishly. Or if you eat much less than what the body needs, under some fancy, under some confused ideal. You don't eat enough at all and become weaker and emaciated. That also is a sure shot of living unintelligently. Neither eat too much nor eat too less, neither speak too much nor speak too less, neither sleep too much nor sleep too less, then you are intelligent. Therefore, in one shloka, he talks about ati ashnataha, anashnataha, overeating, undereating, which are bad. And next shloka, he talks about being moderate in ahara, vihara, swapna, avabodha, and so on. Therefore, friends, Bhagavad Gita at times is so down to earth. In the simplest language, Gita advises us, be moderate in whatever you do. Do not overdo anything. Yuktahara viharasya, yukta cheshtasya karmasu, yukta swapna avabodhasya, yogo bhavati dukkha. Dukkha means that which takes away all your sorrow. Such yoga is possible when we are moderate. To be moderate is intelligence, and to get into excess or to get into denial of what is necessary would be foolish. Now I take you to the fifth selected shloka, and this is on a little higher philosophical level. And I must hasten to add, Bhagavad Gita is a fine blend of very high philosophical insights and very simple day-to-day tips for right living. For Gita is everybody's scripture. People who are utter beginners also read Bhagavad Gita, and people who have been Vedanta students for decades, and who knows, they may be living in Himalayan caves, they also read Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, Gita caters to advanced students as well as novices. Here there is a shloka, chapter 18, verse number 20. And Sri Krishna says, if you want to be foolish, then always have a divisive outlook. Divide people. Oh, these are men, those are women, and I like men. Or say, these are Brahmins and those are Shudras and I like Shudras. Or you say, these are Christians and those are Hindus and I like Christians. Divide and like one group and dislike another group. That is the way to live foolishly. No, we don't want to live foolishly. Tell us about intelligence. That is what the shloka explicitly says. Sarva bhuteshu yenaikam bhavamavyayamikshate avibhaktam vibhakteshu tajnanam satvikam smritam. Drawing from the insights of the Upanishads, where whether you go by Advaita or Dvaita or Vishishta Advaita, all the great traditions tell us one thing. Advaita would say, see that one Brahman which alone is in everybody, women or men, Shudra or Brahmana, Christian or Hindu, foreigner or Indian, see that one Brahman. Dvaita would say, have such Hari Bhakti and see Hari, Hari Sarvottama, Hari Purushottama, see that Supreme Mahavishnu in all people. Even in a little 10-year-old girl, see Vishnu operating. And in a very elderly, highly learned, 81-year-old woman also, see Mahavishnu shining through her. And like that, in Vishishtadvaita, in Vallabhacharya, Shuddha Advaita, and in Shaiva Sampradayas, Basaveshwaras, Veera Shaiva Siddhanta, in Kashmir Shaivism of up north, No matter what philosophy it is, anyone who has some wisdom asks us to see the one in many and not go for many in the one, divisive, thinking of someone as higher and another as lower. Of course, on a practical note, at a given point of time, somebody may be more skilled, somebody may be less skilled, somebody may be doing things rightly, somebody may be not aware, therefore, again and again committing faults. That has to be handled with compassion in the bosom. If somebody doesn't know handling electrical equipment and another person is very knowledgeable and skillful, of course, what I am talking is we have to give some work where handling electrical equipment, maybe with high power and whatnot, to the person who has the skills and knowledge. In the name of seeing one in all, we cannot give it to somebody who is likely to, short circuit something and you will see fumes coming out, smoke coming out. That is not the point. So technology or language, cooking or looking after an organization, finance, or in every matter in this world, there are some who are skilled and some who are not skilled at this point of time. That kind of assessing the talent at a given point of time is common sense. But on other grounds like color of skin or caste or some gender, women, men, or on those grounds, if we harbor some prejudice and we do not look at all equally, that would be a foolish way of living. Again and again we have to correct our thinking to embrace, to accept people of different backgrounds, and we must see what is relevant to a job, a piece of work, or we are thinking of having a relationship. We must see what is relevant. Don't mix it up with irrelevant information. You want a good Hindi teacher at a school that you are running. Don't say, I want men only, I don't like ladies. Don't discriminate against women. Don't discriminate against this or that caste. Get the person who not only knows Hindi well, but also can communicate well, can control the class well. There are some parameters to decide who can be a good Hindi teacher at our school. Then steer clear of divisions. So the fifth one is seeing all equally. Avibhaktam vibhakteshu. Superficially they may be different, but when we have sattvic and pure eyes, we see all of them one. And then, as I already explained, depending on the job on hand, we may see who has the best skills, not on other grounds. Other grounds, we regard all of them equal. Men or women, children or adults, so what? Now I take you to the sixth of the 7 habits of highly foolish people. What is the sixth way of being foolish? Well, I go to chapter 16 and the first 3 verses have so much for us to learn. I go to the 3rd verse and based on that I am putting it in a different way. When we lack speed or efficiency, then that is the way to live foolishly. We cannot drag on what is to be done in 5 days if we don't do in 50 days. At the end of 50 days also somebody asks, is that job over? You first ask, what job are you talking about, and so on. That is a foolish way. Then we don't have tejaha. The 3rd verse of chapter 16 has a couple of words. Tejaha, kshama, dhritihi, shaucham, and one more word, adrohaha. So on that basis, those who don't have tejas, Tejas is, Shankara says, pragalbhyam. Pragalbhya is a less known word, but it means actually certain sharpness, certain quickness where it is appropriate. We should not be quick at places where it is inappropriate. We have to always have a sense of what is proper. Sometimes, we are going with some young people and somebody is trying to befriend the young companions, and somebody asks some nice questions to those younger people. In our enthusiasm, if we answer every question of that person quickly, showing off our tejas, it will not be tejas. It is lack of discretion. We must quickly see that this elderly person whom we are visiting seems to be trying to make friends with my family members. Therefore, let him talk to them. Let them answer. Though I know the answer, I will stay quiet. That is viveka. So otherwise, unless it is that kind of situation, we need to show some speed, some efficiency. And if we don't, that is a foolish way of living. Then Kshama is an accommodative spirit. Yesterday I watched a little video by Dr. Devi Shetty, Narayana Hridayalaya, Bengaluru. I guess there are branches everywhere. There may be one in Goa also. Narayana Hridayalaya, Devi Shetty. And he says, one reason for stress and many heart failures is to be too particular on perfection. Everything should be perfect. Wait a minute. Don't be so insistent. We value perfection. If something is done perfectly, we are all happy. But in human relationships, there has to be a touch of compassion. Someone is not able to do something 100% right way. We need to look at it a little bit with broad-mindedness. Dr. Shetty says humorously in that short video, I once got agitated about my wife not being perfect in all respects. And then he smiles and says, then I realized that she may be thinking like that about me too. This husband is not perfect in all possible ways. And as I saw that if she starts expecting perfection from me as a husband, and I start expecting her to be perfect as a wife, that is a sure way of virasa, of dissension, dissent, of disharmony. We must rather accept each other as we are, and a few imperfections we must, not think about, not worry about. So Kshama is that kind of broad-mindedness, not negligence or not irresponsible behavior. We know very well that this person has this problem, that person has that limitation. But working together, living together, going together, we must bear with certain imperfections. That is Kshama. And if we don't have Kshama, every second day we say, I'll never forgive him. I'll never forget that. I am never going to let go of that memory. Till my last breath I will hold grudge against him, against her. Rama Rama, that is the way to remain unhappy till our last breath. Don't wait for that last breath. Here and now, forgive and forget. That is Kshama. Thirdly, fortitude, dhritihi. Even as difficulties come our way, we need to stay strong. Dhritihi. Patience, in other words. There's a little joke that a man called Michael was going in a park, and he was having a little child in that little vehicle on which you move the child. And people over there saw him taking the child by the walking path around the park and going on saying, "Have patience, dear. Have patience, dear. Mummy will come. Don't get impatient," and so on. People thought he is so loving towards the child. And when one of them went to him and said, "You are such a great father. You are going on saying, 'Have patience, Mummy will come, have patience.' You are speaking so lovingly to the child." Then Michael said, "Thank you for those compliments. I was not addressing the child. I was telling myself, 'Have patience, dear,' is telling myself, 'Have patience. Mummy will come.' Yeah, this child's mummy will come. Therefore, Michael, please have patience." So, either way, to invoke patience, to be patient, that is dhruti, or some other context, to persevere. And in this point, last but not the least, as the third shloka of chapter 16 says, adrohaha. Every one of us has received much help from people, from childhood onwards, from teachers, from parents, from siblings, from neighbors, from some mentors, some guides, some employers, and so on. All through our life, if we make a list of people for whose presence in our life we should thank God, "Oh, how nice I have such people with me in my life." Then imagine, because of some temptation, because of some greed, because of some inability to hold back our emotions, imagine if we do some disservice to those very people. If we let them down, if we betray, if we go in violation of the faith and goodwill that they have in us, that kind of doing disservice to people who have done so much for us would be a terrible thing. That is droha. Droha is part of foolish ways of living. Even if we don't get some possessions, some wealth, some power, some position, even if we don't get some comfort, it's all right. For the sake of comfort or pleasure, power or position, if we do disservice to, if we betray the faith of somebody, that would be a foolish, negative way of living. Now, last but not the least, I draw a shloka from chapter 15. Chapter 15, verse 5 has a few tips on intelligent living, and if we turn them 180 degrees, that is tips on foolish living. Let me put it in that language. Sri Krishna says, foolish people live in pride. Many a time, not because of something they have, but because their grandfather was great or their mother is great, so they think that they are great. What are you? What are your skills and talents? They don't answer that. Do you know whose son I am? Do you know whose granddaughter I am? In this way, mana. Mana means undue, excessive pride. Then moha, delusion or false hope. They live in false hope. For example, they don't do necessary work, but they think that good results will come. Have you done the work? Have you done the groundwork? They do not help somebody, but expect thank you from that person. What have you done for that person to thank you? In various ways, they expect people to be respectful, loving, kind and everything, but they have not contributed to the happiness of those people. Then it is a false hope, it is moha. Then generally one peril of human life is all of us get into some bad associations. Not just in the context of alcohol or smoking or such things, but even in certain wrong ways of thinking, wrong psychological habits. We pick them up because of some unhealthy association. Somebody who is very personally ambitious would try to make us also personally ambitious. Queen Kaikeyi, of course, by God's will, was made jealous and intolerant of Ram in Ramayana. A while ago, she was as happy as Kausalya, but Manthara comes along and completely changes the outlook of Kaikeyi. In every one of us there is a Kaikeyi, and if we get into bad company, we will be having bad thoughts. This bad company is called Sangha, and Sri Krishna asks us to abandon Dussanga. And in that shloka, there are many points, but one more to be mentioned is Sri Krishna emphasizes the need for regular spiritual practice. In fact, in that video by Devi Shetty, by coincidence or without planning, I am mentioning it. He is discussing stress and such problems with a doctor, Dr. Sanjay Mehta, I think, cardiologist, very senior and I believe highly ranked cardiologist of the country. And Dr. Devi Shetty discusses, and over there he says, Sanjay, I strongly feel that if people turn spiritual, if they pray daily, if they meditate a little daily, lot of stress, lot of medical problems also will reduce. Dr. Devi Shetty says like that. And Sri Krishna said that thousands of years ago. To pray, to do some spiritual practice of your choice. You don't have to imitate your neighbor. A neighbor may be praying, you may be doing yoga. Neighbor may be chanting Vishnu Sahasranama. You may just sit and listen to flute, but visualizing this is Sri Krishna playing flute without chanting a shloka or mantra. You have made your own packaging, fine. Bhagavad Gita is highly accepting of all such variety. Do sadhana in your own way. Your heart is the judge. If your heart says this is true spirituality, in principle it is no less than someone chanting Veda mantras or doing some rituals, then that is fine. So, to put in that language of foolishness, chapter 15, verse 5 says, to live in pride, in some sense of superiority, to live in moha, that is delusion, false hope, to live with wrong associations and not to do any spiritual practice at all, living just in a materialistic way, are the way of the foolish. Whereas describing intelligent people, Lord Krishna says, Nirmana moha jita sangha doshaha adhyatma nityaha vinivritta kamaha dvandvair vimukta sukha dukkha sannaihi gacchanti amudhaha padamavyayam tat. See, he uses the word amudaha. Mudas are the foolish ones. And all of us have great prospect, if we want, of becoming foolish. But we also have in this human life ample opportunity to correct our ways one day at a time and move towards living wisely. Wise living, intelligent living is the sum and substance of Bhagavad Gita and of all worthy books of wisdom, Bible or Quran, Dhammapada or the Torah of the Jewish people and other holy books of Jains or Baha'i or so many other schools of wisdom, schools of tremendous insight. But we are studying Gita. Gita asks us to live intelligently and stop our foolish ways. Thus, 7 selected slokas, somewhat randomly selected, for there are so many gems scattered across the 18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita. I wish every one of you the wisdom to again and again choose intelligent ways and the wisdom of that discretion to stop, to let go, to say goodbye to foolish ways which would have somehow entered our life. All of us have some amount of error in us, some foolishness in us. We must take note of them, and earlier the better. Let go of those foolish ways. May Sri Krishna, may Bhagavan Vasudeva bless all of us. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hari